Right, I'm joined today by heavyweight boxing legend Lamon Brewster. What an honour this is to have you on my channel, champ. So, how's things going, champ?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good, Lamon. So, Lamon, how you doing, mate? You've obviously had a legendary career. 2 seconds, we're just getting back. How you
Okay.
doing, Lamon? You all right?
I'm doing good, brother. Thank you for asking. How you doing, man?
Good, good. I'm great. Thanks, mate. So, Lamon, you're obviously like a former world champion, boxing legend, sort of all-time great. Tell us about how you got into boxing, mate.
I got into boxing because of karate movies, man. I grew up watching kung fu theater, and I love that whole thing about Shaolin Temple, whereas it was about a guy who couldn't fight, going to get revenge, and then just when I learned about studying my craft, studying the art of boxing, I fell in love with it, man. The ability to hit without getting hit, and just being able to put myself in a position to be effective, and how to break a guy down from a mental standpoint. So I fell in love with the sport of boxing through martial arts, man. And I always looked at boxing as a form of martial arts. It's the focus of the
So
hands
what
and the
age were
feet.
you when you started boxing?
I was 7 years old. I started in 1980.
So, were you straight into like amateur fights at that age, were you, mate?
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
Did you started training at 7? Did you start competing at 7 as well as an amateur boxer?
No, well, so I didn't compete till I was like, I believe 8. But they put me in with guys because of my size. They put me in with guys that was my size, but they were like way older than me. So it wasn't no competition. They kicked my butt because mentally I wasn't there, just physically.
Uh-huh. And do you think that, like, as a pro in some of your like big fights, you always seem to have the toughness to dig deep and get through the scares? Do you reckon being thrown in at the deep end like that sort of helped you out a bit in that regard?
Yes, man, because what I realized about big guys, or should I say most people, right? So most fighters only want to fight when they can show their skill. Most fighters want to fight because they have a good speed, they have a good punch, they may have a good boxing skill, they may have a good trainer. But I found that 99% of fighters don't like to fight when they're tired, when they're
Uh-huh.
thirsty, when they're hot. So for me, I found by fighting guys, I could beat them if I took them into the later rounds, and then took away all of the skill, all of the good instructions. And when it comes down to if a man really wants it or not, that's when I like to fight, because
Mm-hmm.
anybody can fight when they fresh, but everybody can fight when they're tired. Then we
Mm-hmm.
see what you're really made of, because a lot of people fold under pressure because their intention of being a fighter wasn't really legit. They just wanted to be a fighter because of the glory and the money, but not because of the simple fact of saying, I am the greatest warrior on the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm guessing if that was your sort of mindset and that was your approach to the sport, that like wearing people down probably didn't work as well for you in the amateur ranks as it did in the pros. What was your amateur record in the end, mate?
My amateur record, I'm just rounding it off. I was somewhere around 90 and 10 with 75 knockouts. Uh, but for
Wow.
me, as an amateur, it was a much different mindset. In terms of amateur, because at an amateur you fight people that is your size, so it was easier fighting a guy that was 201 pounds, which is what I weighed as an amateur. But when you turn professional as a heavyweight, you may be giving up. You may be fighting a guy that has 30, 40, 50 pounds over you. So you have to change your tactic, if you will. You can't, it's easier to fight a guy that weighs the same as you, but when you got a guy that can lay on you and put 30 or 40 pounds on you every single round for 12 rounds, then you have to come up with a different strategy. And the one factor that I had was because there's 108 pressure points, 36 will kill you, just like martial arts. So if you start focusing on how to break the body down, it actually makes it harder for a bigger guy to be successful in the sport of boxing going into the later rounds. But the hard part is getting to the later rounds, because with a guy laying on you like that, it takes so much out of you. So it's just a different mindset that you have to take on in order to be successful. That's all. Adapt and overcome. That's what we do. I can't hear you.
Sorry, mate. I had my mic muted there. Well, speaking of big blokes like that, Lamon, you know, it just made us think, as a former heavyweight champion yourself, what you think about some of the current crop of heavyweights like Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. How do you think you would have competed today against that crop of heavyweights, mate?
Well, you know, it definitely would have been interesting, because I would have tried to not win the fights with those guys by points. I would have tried to win the fight by knockout with these guys, because they have the height, they have the reach. So it would have been in my best interest to try to chop these guys down early in the fight, to slow up their legs, to slow up their breathing patterns, and get them into those later rounds, and then make them try to swing at me with those big old weighted gloves and arms from me pounding on them, to see who would have become the victor. It'd have been very interesting. It really would. It'd have been great. My era represented the last era of the average heavyweight, if you will, because now you got guys like Tyson Fury, who's a phenom. You got people like Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua. These guys are exceptional, because to be that height and to be able to do the things that they do at that size, it's incredible, you know.
So, Lamon, you went pro with a record of 90 wins, 10 defeats, 75 victories by knockout. You must have had some big names already, like scalped some big names already by then. What was it like for you going pro? And did you go pro with Don King straight away? Because I remember when I was a kid and I used to watch your fights, he was your promoter at the time.
Yeah. So when I first turned pro, I didn't go with any promoter. Actually, I was under a guy by the name of Cedric Kushner, who had the heavyweight explosions. And at that time, the up-and-coming heavyweights was, let's see, Ike Bayabuchi, Chris Bird, let's see, who else was it? Hasim Rockman, David Tua, Lamon Brewster. It was either us five or one more that I'm missing out, but they considered us to be the young lions. And you know, it was an interesting time. And then from there, after Cedric Kushner, I moved on to kind of being independent. And then I signed with Bob Arum, and then I went with Don King. So that was kind of the order of my professional career as far as promotions.
So is when you signed with Don King and sort of Bob Arum, is that when your career really seemed to take off, mate?
Yeah, because of the simple fact that, you know, these guys are legends in the sport. And like, for instance, Don King owned the heavyweight division back then. If you wanted to get a heavyweight title, you pretty much always had to go through Don King in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And you can go back and look at history. Like, everybody had to deal with Don King back then in order to get that title shot, because he had such a lock on the heavyweight division, you know.
Do you think that was a good thing or a bad thing? Because there's a lot of bad stories about Don King out there. And what's your thoughts of the man, mate?
You know what, man? I will say this. With Don, he is a businessman, and you get what you negotiate. And he's the type of dude that he knows this boxing from front to back. And it's like it will be like a person that read a law book but never went to college to officially learn how to be a lawyer, standing before someone who actually wrote the book that you just outlined. You know what I mean? Like Don King, they made, he's the only man in boxing that they actually made laws for. Even my lawyer at negotiation tables used to say, Don, that's not even in the lawyer dictionary, man. You know, he would use words that like ain't nobody never heard of, you know.
We have Nordic Warrior in the comments saying, yeah, Kushner got screwed over by King a few times, poached several of his fighters and had them violate contracts.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly, I think he did something like that with Hasim Rahman after Rahman beat Lewis for the titles.
Yeah.
Only in America, Tom Joe says in the comments.
Well, I put it like this, man. Don will get you the title, but he gonna get the money. Just know that. It's like it's a trade-off.
So on your way up, Lamon, before you like worked your way up to like the world heavyweight title, who would you say your hardest fights were?
My mama. no, my hardest. Okay, so you okay? So the question you're asking me is, as a professional, as a young professional, before I won the title, you're saying who was my hardest fights? Was that right?
Yeah, that's right, mate.
Okay, so I had a fight with a guy. My first loss, I fought a guy by the name of Cliff ATN. They called the Black Rhino. And what made the fight difficult was that in the very first round of the fight, I tore my ACL and my left knee. So I had to fight for 10 rounds. The first time I fought on HBO with a torn ACL, you know, so I ended up losing the fight. And I just remember, like, the next day when I saw him, I was limping in the lobby. And then when I saw him, I just stood up straight because I didn't want him to see the pain that I was in. My knee was swollen like a watermelon, man. I couldn't walk for like 3 days after, but he won the fight, man. And, you know, all I could do was go back to the drawing board, which really there wasn't a drawing board to go back to. It was just that I wasn't able to implement the plan that I had to fight him because of, you know, the knee injury. But, you know, that's life, man.
And Clifford Etienne was no joke. I mean, you don't want to be fighting someone like him with an injury. Am I right in thinking he gave Vladimir Klitschko a defeat as well?
Would you said would Cliff Etienne give Vladimir Klitschko a defeat?
No, I think he actually did beat Klitschko, didn't he, once?
No, not Etienne. No, sir. Not I'm trying Corey Sanders beat him. And, oh, I know who you're thinking about, the gentleman out of Oklahoma. I can't think of his name, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah, no, it wasn't him.
So anyways, recovering from the defeat of Clifford Etienne, what was your mindset like? Were you deflated? Were you sort of, and what was your road back to the title like from there, Lamon?
Well, you know what, man? The crazy thing is that so it was a partial ACL tear, so they told me that I was going to have surgery if I didn't have bed rest. So being that this is my first loss as a professional, I took it hard, man. Even though I know I lost the fight because of the injury. So what Dum Dum did was they said, well, listen, you got to stay in bed. And you got to see how this knee is going to heal up, because if not, you're going to have surgery. It's going to end your career. And so I said, man, I can't have surgery. So I just laid in the bed, and all it did was eat. And then my knee got better, and they said, well, you can fight again, but you have to wrap your knee. So if you ever see me, every time I fought from that point on, I always have my knee wrapped. And what I did was I bloomed up to like 300 pounds. Now, mind you, I'm around my mid-20s, and I blew up to 300 pounds. And so what ended up happening was I had a fight to see if my knee would hold up in a decent fight. And then after I won that fight, I still was like probably in my high, I would say probably my high 30s, but I wanted to be back down into my 20s. So after I won that fight, they called me. HBO called and said, "Well, we want you to fight again because the fight you had with Cliff ATN was such a great fight. We want to bring you back to HBO." So they put me in here with a guy named Charles Shuford. Well, the guy named Charles Shuford, I had sparred with him all throughout the amateurs, my amateur career, because I was #1 heavyweight in the amateurs from 94 to 96. So I already knew this guy from Las Vegas. I sparred with him at Johnny Toco's in Las Vegas boxing gym. And, I didn't have no problem with this dude. So I'm like, yeah, make the fight, man. This won't be, I'm going to get myself redeemed on HBO. So they made the fight. But remind you, I still, like I said, I still was in my high 30s, so I wanted to get down into my 20s, which was my fighting weight before I injured my knee when I fought Cliff ATN. So what I did was I went to Gold's Gym in Venice Beach in Los Angeles, in California, where I live, and I was asking weightlifters of all people, I'm like, how do you lose weight and still look good, And so they told me, you have to eat a certain way, and they showed me how to eat. They showed me how to eat the way bodybuilders eat when they go out on stage and they look good. But the difference, the trade-off is they look good, but they don't have any strength. They failed to tell me that. So I'm listening to these weightlifters tell me how to get my weight down, and by the time I got my weight down, it zapped me of so much of my energy, man. I didn't have any strength whatsoever in this fight. And so I looked good. I got my weight down, but they didn't tell me because I didn't at that point, I wasn't thinking about strength because I was really focused on my weight because I know at this particular weight, I can fight really good at this particular weight. So what ended up happening was I got my weight down and then I got in the ring with this guy and I was so weak. I couldn't even, you know what, if this guy, if he would have just really been a little more aggressive in the fight, he probably would have knocked me out because I was so weak that if you watch me, when I walk back to the corners, I don't even wait for the stool. I just sit down because I'm so freaking tired, man. But that just goes to show how important it is to educate yourself on not just being a fighter inside the ring, how important it is to educate yourself on every aspect of your life, man, because all things work together. Because I lost on nutrition. I lost on a simple fact that I didn't understand what a carb was. I just thought that meat gave you energy, and as long as I ate meat, I'd have strength. I didn't know that I didn't know what a carb was. I didn't understand how the body worked, So I ended up losing that fight, man. And it to this day, that's always going to be a dark cloud over my head, man, because it was like he won a fight that he shouldn't have won. There's no way that I believe and I know this guy could have beat me. That ain't to say he was a bad fighter, but I know I was better than him, but I'll never be able to prove that, But I always proved it before when we sparred and whatnot, when I used to make him quit. But hey, man, God does everything for a reason. He got the victory. More power to him. I hope it helped his life.
Yes, definitely, Liam, and everything happens for a reason. And sometimes when you have a couple of bad performances, that's when you start getting off at the big fights because the bigger fighters
cannot hear you.
Will then agree to fight you.
Let me find out what's going on here.
I can still hear you,
trying
mate.
To figure out.
Can you still hear us, Lamon?
I guess I got to get an earpiece. I don't know what happened where the volume won't allow me to no longer hear. Let's see here. Audio. Oh man. Hang on, I'm gonna get an earpiece.
Can you? Oh well, we've lost Lamon for a second. He's gonna come back on in a second, folks. I'll add him back into the stream, and I'm gonna ask him next about the Klitschko fight, going into that, and what you call it. Obviously, one of the biggest wins in history. I could hear Lamon, but it appeared that he couldn't hear me. So just in me, here we go. We've got him back. We've got him back.
There we go. I don't know what happened. Just the volume.
Can you
went
hear
up.
us again, Lamon? Everyone can hear you, mate.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. So, Lamon, I was saying there, after that loss again, what you had, and you obviously regrouped and stuff.
Yes,
Tell us
sir.
about bouncing back from that and going into the like how the Klitschko fight came about and the run of fights ahead leading up to that, mate.
Yeah, man. So after that fight, that's when Top Rank, Bob Arum, that's when they cut me loose. And I don't blame them. I would have did the same thing from a business. You know, it's a business at the end of the day. And there's no reason I should have lost to that guy. And there's no reason I mean, you know, the ATM fight was a great fight, but I shouldn't have lost to him either. So they decided to terminate the contract. They did. And, you know, I ended up at that point, because now I have the knee injury. Now because I have the two losses on my belt, under my belt. So at that point, man, I started thinking about my career and what was going to happen to me. And so I said, well, I think I'm out of a lot of options. And if I still hope to have any chance in this game, I got to try to get with a promoter that can help me to win the title. And that's when Don King came along. I had the opportunity to speak with Don, and then Don don't throw nothing away. He's like, oh no, we'll bring you back. You know, we got you, and we'll get you the title shot. But he said, I'm gonna throw you at the bottom. I'm gonna start you at the bottom because you didn't sign with me in the beginning. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make you fight your way to the top, starting at the bottom of my list. And so that's what I did. I fought everybody that Don threw at me, and I beat everybody that Don threw at me to the extent.
Just got Lamon, hello. Well, we've just got Lamon glitching there for a second. I'm sure he'll be able to get back on in a minute. But what you call it, anyways, just going to say I was going to do a video about it, but I've got a Bareknuckle fight coming up. I'm not announcing it yet,
Okay.
but I'll get into that and I'll announce that here whilst we've lost Lamon. Just to keep things ticking over till he comes back. But I was starting to get into that there as well, where he was talking about the build-up to the fight with Klitschko, and I want to hear a little bit about that, because obviously, if anyone doesn't know about Lamon, he obviously beat Klitschko, won the WBO world title. I think he got 2 seconds. Here we go. I've got him coming back.
Is that better?
Hello, you're all right. We've got you back. We've got you back.
Great. Sorry.
No, it's all right, mate. So we'll pick up where we left off. You signed with Don King. You were beating everybody Don King threw your way.
Yes, sir.
And, eventually you got the shot against Vladimir Klitschko. Tell us about that, mate.
Yes, so they have they were having the WBO convention down in Miami, Florida. And so at the time, my manager, Sam Simon, creator of The Simpsons, he actually created Bart Simpson. He said, let's go to Florida and go to the WBO conference. And I said, okay. So we went down there. And so in the morning, when they have their board to examine who they should have to fight for the title each year to defend the WBO title, they called the names to see who was present in the top 5. And because I had beat Don King's top guy, that put me in a number 4 spot. So when I came, none of the other fighters was there. And by this time, Vladimir had already lost his title to Corey Sanders. And so the WBO was vacant. So the number 1 and number 2 was actually fighting for another sanctioning body's belt. So that disqualified them. I believe that number 3, I forget who that was, but they didn't want to fight me. So then when they offered Corey Sanders, rest in peace, Corey Sanders from South Africa, who passed away to gun violence. He turned down the fight to fight me for the title. So he gave up his title, the WBO, to go over to fight Vitaly Klitschko, who's now the mayor of Kiev. So that left the WBO title vacant. So being that I was the next in line to inherit the belt, instead of giving me the belt, they said, well, we're going to have you to fight somebody for it. So they sent me a letter that said that I was now the #1 for the WBO title, but I couldn't fight until they bought somebody for me to fight. So that meant I had to just sit on the shelf. So what I did was I sat for a whole year on the shelf, inactive, and watched Vladimir Klitschko just fight every 2-3 months. He just really sharpened his skills by staying busy like that. I commend him for that. But what I did was I kept telling myself, hey man, you're going to fight for this title. Every day I woke up, even though I didn't have a fight, every day I trained like I was getting ready to fight for this title. So finally, after a year passed, a year and 2 months to be exact, what I ended up doing was I got the letter that said, you're going to fight Vladimir Klitschko. And I'm like, how ironic, I'm fighting Vladimir Klitschko. They was grooming this dude to get this title because this dude was fighting every 3 months. He was cleaning up America. That's when they were like, oh, well, America's been dominated by the European fighters. Okay, that's fine, but he ain't fought me. And so when I got the chance to fight him, it was April 10th, 2004 at Mandalay Bay on I believe it was HBO. It might have been Showtime, but I think it was HBO. But anyway, what I had did to prepare myself was that I just kept going to gyms. I kept training. I kept trying to get myself in the mindset that I was going to fight for this title. And so when I stepped in the ring, I was already ready and prepared. Now, I had a lot of rust from not fighting for over a year, obviously, but I was ready for that fight, man. And a style of fighting that I had never implemented before, which was me actually
Lamon, we still got you there.
Based upon your skill level as far as who throws the most punches. But I knew in order for me to win this fight, I couldn't do that because I'm a Black American from the ghetto who didn't win a gold medal, who didn't go to the Olympics. And here Vladimir Klitschko is, this European champion who's sweeping the nation. So what was a guy like me gonna how did I think that I possibly could win skill wise? So I studied his strengths and I studied his weaknesses. And so I came up with the plan to get him into the late rounds to actually fight hard. So what you saw was in this fight was me going to him, not trying to win, but trying to give the appearance that I was trying to win, to make him feel as though he had to throw a whole lot of punches in order to compete with me. So what I had to do was try to weather the storm of these big bombs that he was throwing and not get hit with them, so that I can get him into the later rounds where it wasn't about skill, but more about will. And so there were points in the fight where I was listening to his breathing. There was points in the fight where I could see him starting to slow down. I could see in his eyes, like it psychologically was messing with him, the fact that everything he was doing had no effect on me. So mentally, I beat him. Psychologically, I beat him. Spiritually, I beat him. Physically, I beat him. I beat him from the standpoint of a man who had a plan not to win the rounds, but to win the fight. And that was by taking him to the deep water and letting him drown in through the stress. Because when a man is fresh, he can think good thoughts. When he's fresh, his defense is good. Everything that he does is good. But when he's tired, then he starts to doubt himself. When he's tired, then he starts to ask himself, how much does he really want it? When he's tired, then he has to dig deep to find a reason of why am I still in here. I know why I'm in here. I'm in here because I wanted to get away from crack, the drug dealers, the police, the killers, the prostitution, the roaches, the rats. I want to get out of the hood. and this was my chance. So I fought from that standpoint, which was my why. That was my reason to keep going, no matter what punch he hit me with, no matter what he did, no matter how strong he was, no matter how tall he was, no matter how much he outweighed me. My what you say, the faith of a mustard seed, I had the determination that I was going to be successful, but I knew, just like a game of chess, I had to be patient and wait until the opportunity presented itself before I could take advantage of it. And I did, and it paid off.
So after you beat Klitschko, he tried to make some excuses. What did you think about all of that? I think Lamon's just crashed again, but we'll have him back in a second. He'll be back on. But I am just reading. I'll just read through some of these comments. What people's put up in the meantime. He claimed Nordic Warrior. He claimed he was drugged. Aye, he did, and I thought that was a little bit pathetic, really. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of excuses in sports, isn't there? Richard Brown caught on the button. Well, aye, you know what I mean? There's nothing you can do when you are caught on the button, and when you listen to Lamon, he spent a year training to chin this bloke, and they've tried all the dirty tricks to rob him of it.
Sorry about
right, we've got you back. We've got you back, Lamon. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm sorry we got interrupted again.
No, it's all right, mate. So like I says, after you beat Klitschko, he tried to make some excuses, like says he was drugged. He had no proof of any of it. What did you make of all of that, mate?
Well, it hurt me, man. It hurt me. It hurt me spiritually, and it hurt me mentally, because I did everything I could do to get ready for this fight. I didn't cut no corners. I didn't cheat. I did everything that I could, man. And then for me to win the fight, and it was a hard fight, a fight where I was giving up rounds, and for this gentleman to say those things, that there was interference, that somebody cheated, it really took away from me and my victory. I mean, it took him many, many years to really come out and really say, hey, man, it was a fair fight. He just won. But in the meantime, everything he said, the media was soaking up. So everybody looked at me like I was a guy who cheated, man. And it's like, it's a contradiction. You can't believe in God and be a cheater too. So which one is it? I always profess my faith, and I always ask that the fights be fair. And for this fight, for me to give my all, and it took every last ounce of my strength and will and determination to win, for him to overshadow that, it really hurt me. It hurt me because people looked at me for many years as a cheater, and I would never do that. And then he finally came out years later and said that I didn't cheat.
I mean, it's good. It's good that he finally did come round and do that. But let's go on about your journey, mate. When you became world champion, you had a couple of good defenses against Andrew Galotta and Luan Krasnicki. Tell us about those, mate, because I think the first one was Galotta, who was a bit of a head case, and I think you done him in the first round. But he was always a little bit mental. Was there any funny stories in the build-up to that one?
Yes, man. So with the Galotta fight, the reason why it turned out the way that it turned out was because he tried to intimidate me before the fight. And I'm fighting him in his hometown, which is Chicago, which is the largest Polish population outside of Poland in the entire world. And I am the champ, and I'm fighting him for my title in his backyard. And he wasn't even my mandatory fight, but I did it because the fight that I had before that, the first fight I had, was against the Australian Kali Mihan, which was a very close fight. But then to redeem myself, I took the fight with Andrew Galotta, not realizing that all the politics was going to be in his favor because he had his referee. It was in his hometown. And, again, I was just written off. But for me to win this fight, not only did I win this fight became the fastest knockout in heavyweight championship history in a world title fight between the heavyweights. And so I hold the record of 53 seconds for the fastest knockout in the heavyweight championship title fight in history. But the thing is, what made it funny was because he tried to intimidate me before the fight. And so at one point he stood up, and I guess, and then he stood over me, looking down on me while I was sitting in the chair, and he was like talking about he was going to knock me out. And I'm sitting here looking at this dude like, man, are you crazy? Do you not know who I am outside of this boxing game? Do you not know what I would do to you? Because I'm from the street. You know what I mean? I grew up in gangs. I grew up fighting. I mean, like boxing is a sport. You know what I mean? I did fighting for my life, like gangs and neighborhoods against neighborhoods. Like that's the way I came up with crack. You know what I mean? Like,
have you got any stories about that, Lamon? Like the sort of gangster stuff, like when you were growing up, did you have any close calls or lose any friends or anything like that?
Man, listen, we ain't got enough time for me to tell you about all the things that I grew up with, all the stories of the bullets that killed my friends that was next to me, or the bullets that just missed me, or the times when the police chased me, or, you know, just all the things I did in my life. The reason why I am the way I am today is because I realized God has protected me, because a lot of my friends, the overwhelming majority of my friends today are in the graves, or they in the prisons, or they're dope fiends, if you will. So I know that God has given me a favor to be able to tell these young men and these young women that there is another road. It's a road that you got to sacrifice in order to make it, but you can make it, and you don't have to worry about watching over your back. You don't have to worry about the police kicking in your door and all these type of things, because I made it, man, out of these same communities that most of my people are in, which are the ghettos. You don't have to worry about bullets coming through your house. You don't have to worry about running from the police, or the police letting dogs out on you and those type of things. You know, I try to show them a better way of life, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, everybody on earth is going to come to a fork in the road where they got to go left or go right. So I'm just trying to help people to understand going the right way in life, and right may be going left, right may be going down, right may be going back, but I'm just trying to make sure that they understand. And I say overstand because under hasn't been enough. I try to help people to understand that you got to make sure that your next move is your best move, because everything you do today is going to affect what you do tomorrow.
Wise words, mate. Very wise words. So, like, you know, like you say, when you've grew up like on the streets like that and sort of dodge bullets, you're not going to be scared of a fist fight with any man.
Nobody.
So then after knocking Galata out, tell us about the Luan Krasnicki fight, because if I remember rightly, it was out in Germany, or was it? And you had to come from behind and knock him out.
So again, here's another fight that I was supposed to lose, because when Don made the fight, he saw me. He saw I wasn't in shape. I was 300 pounds. And when he made the fight from the time I left his house in Boca Raton, going back to train with Buddy McGirt in Vero Beach. The fight was already announced, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to keep it real. Don King wanted a white heavyweight champion, because Don King, he recognized the money he would have been able to make, especially with a German heavyweight champion. Why? Because Max Schmeling was the first German mandatory challenger since Max Schmeling beat Joe Louis in the Depression days. So to imagine a guy like Luan Krasnicki beating, as they would call me, Black Rocky from America, and then him being a white German European champion, do you know how much money Don King would have made? So Don made this fight. Luan Krasnicki was already in training before I even knew I was fighting this dude. And like I say, from the time I left his house in Boca Raton, by the time I got back to Vero Beach, it was all over the boxing networks that I was fighting Luan Krasnicki. And here I am, 300 pounds. So I had to call my guys and like, listen, I need you to get on a plane wherever you at and come here right now so we can start training, because I got to get in shape. And so I murdered myself to get myself in shape. I was able to do it. And through the grace of God, again, going into this fight, I'm fighting him in his backyard. We fought in Hamburg, Germany. We fought in his backyard. Now, mind you, I am the champion. I'm the only heavyweight champion that probably never defended his title in his hometown. I never got a chance to defend my home in my hometown. Don King never gave me a signing bonus. You're talking about a heavyweight champion. I mean, so there's so many things that I could have looked at as a negative. But here's the thing about me. Like you said, if you can grow up in a neighborhood full of drugs and drug dealers and killers and wicked people, the last thing you're going to fear is a man in front of you with gloves on. So I knew if I fought Luan Krasnicki, I knew I wasn't going to win a decision, but I didn't ever go in there with the decision on winning a decision. I went in there with the thought that I was going to knock him out. And that's what I did. As a matter of fact, if you go and look at the fight, I think it was the 6th or 7th round, I actually knocked him out. If you just do the count, if you count with the normal count, you will see I knocked him out. He didn't get up at the count of 10. The ref got to the count of 10 and then he paused until he stood up, which gave another 2 or 3 seconds. But don't take my word for it. Go back and look. So then in the I forget what round it was that I knocked him out in, but in that round,
I think it was round 9, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking that, but I'm just not sure. But in that 9th round, when I was tired, so when I got tired, that's when I knew he had to be tired. And at that point, then I didn't want to use skill no more. So if you look at my approach with him, with Vladimir Klitschko, I no longer was trying to use skill. At that point, I was using will. My will says that I can still punch because I have heavy hands, even though I got the littlest hands in boxing. But the point is, I knew if I hit this guy or any of these dudes in the later rounds, I knew they weren't going to want to stand up to too much of that. And by the grace of God, I hit him with a shot and he went down. And then when he got up, he was like, I've had enough, because I was ready to die. And when I fight people, I try to fight them with that mentality of, listen, if you're not willing to die, that's why I got emotional when I fought Vladimir Klitschko at the press conference. And I started tearing up because it's like, if you're not willing to kill me for something I believe in, then you're not going to win. You're not, because to me, if you're telling me this is the difference between me being successful or me being on a beggar all my life, well, you know what? I'd rather die. I'd rather die trying. I'm ready to get carried out on a stretcher, because that's the true heart and mindset of a warrior. It ain't always about skills. It ain't always about winning every round. It's about how much do you want it? How much are you willing to endure? Because remember, pressure makes diamonds, but pressure also busts pipes.
Definitely, mate. It does. And so I suppose after the Krasnicki fight, I think the next one was Sergey Lomachenko, where you lost the title.
Yeah.
And do you think it was a little bit of that story again, where Don King wanted a white champion and stuff like that, or what was the story with that one?
Well, the story with that one, I'm going to blame myself. I'm going to tell you why. Because when Don made that fight, I had prayed to God, because he made it again on a very short notice. And I said to myself, I prayed to God. I said, God, if you don't want me to take this fight, give me a sign. And this was at the beginning of training camp. So I'm going through camp. I'm struggling every day to try to get this weight down. And I was able to get the weight down. I started doing really good in camp. And so then we go through camp. And at the end of camp, the week before we was going to leave out to go to the fight in Cleveland, I'm walking to the bathroom when I woke up that morning, and I kept saying, man, something is weird. Like, I don't know what's wrong. And then I noticed, as I'm standing over the urinal, I can't see out of my left eye. Like if you're looking straight out, I couldn't see nothing beneath looking straight out. Like everything looking straight out, I could only see half of it. I could only see what was up above, but I couldn't see my feet. I couldn't see anything in my left eye. So I've trained for this fight. I wanted to buy my mother a house. I wanted to get out of my contract with Don King. And so I had ended up tell my best friend who was there with me. I said, hey man, I got a problem. And I explained to him how in my left eye I couldn't see down, but I had just passed the eye test. I had just the day before I had just taken the eye exam, but at some point I guess my eye started to from you know, once having a detached retina, I guess my retina started to tear again, and that's what it was. But at the time, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking I got to get my mother this house. I got to defend this title so that I can get out of this contract with Don King. But then I forgot what I had prayed to God about, which was to give me a sign. So in my mind, I ain't thinking about that anymore. And then it was funny because I'm on the plane flying to Cleveland from Florida. And while I'm on the plane, I have a dream. And for the first time in my life, on all the planes I've flown on my entire life, I had a dream that the plane crashed. And then when I woke up, I'm still on a plane. So I'm just like, man, like all this was really a sign, but I didn't see it because my mind was so set on, I gotta buy my mother this house. I'm, you know, my friend, I let him convince me to go ahead and take the fight instead of pulling out, letting my eye get repaired, and then coming back fighting this guy. So when I get there, you know, everything was cool or whatnot, man. And I did something that I also didn't know was going to be very detrimental in this fight. I used a one-piece mouthpiece. The one-piece mouthpiece is when you can bite down on both sides, but there's no air in the middle. Well, the problem with that was that I didn't know that I had my nose broken at some point. I don't know exactly when, but I ended up having a deviated septum, so I can only breathe out of one nostril. So I'm fighting for the heavyweight title of the world with one nostril with a mouthpiece that you can't breathe through. So I'm breathing through one nostril. So imagine running a sprint for 12 rounds with one nostril and thinking you're going to win. So then when I got into the fight, I walk into the ring, and the minute I put my foot through the ropes and then I stood up with both feet inside the ring, something came over me. It was like, man, I got a bad feeling about this. But, you know, I'm a warrior. So what am I going to do? What am I say? Oh, well, I got to come back when I feel better. I had to fight. So I put it out of my mind. I said, listen, I know I can beat this guy. I do. Even to this day, I know I could beat this guy. Even when I asked him for a rematch, once I had got my eye back together, they wanted like $1 billion to fight me. So because they know that like he won the fight. Don't get me wrong, but he won the fight because in the first round of the fight, when the bell rung, he was so afraid to come out and fight me that he was trying to fill me out like any smart fighter would do. I'm not criticizing him for that, but what happened was the crowd started to boo. So when the crowd started to boo, I started getting anxious. Like, man, I'm the heavyweight champ. Like, man, I'm relentless Lamon Brewster. I got to make this fight. So I started trying to be more aggressive so that the people wouldn't be booing at me, maybe just booing at him. So I threw a punch because first we were just jockeying for position. Then I threw a punch, and then he responded by throwing 2 punches. I slipped right, and then I slipped left. Okay, boom. So then we started moving around again. The crowd started getting restless. I said, man, I gotta let these people know why I'm champ. So I throw another punch. I slipped right, but instead of slipping left, I pulled back. When I pulled back, the tip of his finger, the tip of his glove just flicked the bottom of my eye in the exact same spot that I told you that I was blind in. And I immediately went blind in that eye. It looked like somebody put a yellow veil over my eye with a light, with a real bright light behind it. And somebody like sprinkled like something red down the middle. I guess that was the blood. So I had to fight for 12 rounds with one eye in excruciating pain because the nerves behind that rip, it felt like somebody had an ice pick and they were behind my eye and they were slowly trying to push out for 12 rounds. So only thing I kept thinking is I'm gonna lose my fight if I don't continue to fight. I panicked. I didn't know I could have stopped and they would have called it a no contest. I could have got my eye fixed before I did more damage by going 12 rounds and coming back and then successfully defending my title. So my ignorance got me beat. My lack of faith got me beat because first God had already showed me the sign that I should have pulled out of the fight, but because I had just passed the test the day before, because I knew I could beat this guy, because I knew I would be able to buy my mother a house, I took the fight. So that ended my career. Because from that point on, my depth perception, I don't know if you've ever had any eye injury, but close one eye and try to shake somebody's hand. Close one eye and try to catch a football. Close one eye and try to hit a baseball. So that's the way I've lived my life, just trying to adjust to having one eye. And so from the first bell to the last bell, I was in excruciating pain. And the rest was history, man.
I don't know how you done it, Lamon. It's incredible, mate. It really is. So I suppose moving on from that, you went on with your career, and you give Vladimir a rematch with this eye issue, and you fought Robert Elenius. You had a few wins. Do you have any regrets about continuing? And that eye got worse, didn't it?
Yeah, it got worse, man. The thing about Vladimir in the second fight, what people don't know, is I spent 9 months laying face down after that Likovich fight in a hospital with a gas bubble in my eye with a morphine drip hooked up to my arm because I was in so much pain. And they said that they don't know if the pain will ever go away. They don't know why I was having this pain. The doctor said he didn't cut a nerve, so all I could do was take his word for it. They said that this type of surgery is not associated with the kind of pain that I was feeling. And so it was very hard to lay 23 hours out of the day face down. Even the TV had to be on the ground looking up. And that's the way I lived my life for 9 months. So when the pain finally succeeded, I'm in Marina Del Rey Hospital. I walk out into the parking lot. I'm getting into the car to try to pick my life back up. My phone rings. Vladimir Klitschko wants to fight you. And I'm kind of looking like, I'm looking around like, do somebody know I just came out of the hospital? Now, Vladimir Klitschko, the whole time I had the title, he never once even mentioned my name about fighting me. You can't find a report where he said he wanted to fight Lamon Brewster. But now that my eye is ripped, now that I'm just coming out of the hospital, I still got marks in my arms from the doggone IV drip and the morphine drip. Now he wants to fight me. So then I say, well, listen, man, I don't even know if the world still exists because I ain't been nowhere but face down. Like everything was looking at the ground. So I said, well, listen, I need a tune-up fight before I could fight Vladimir Klitschko, one of the best fighters in the heavyweight division today. He's been active. I've not been active. It ain't like I was going to the gym. I was laying face down doing absolutely nothing for the first time in my life. Even when I was in the belly of my mother, I did more exercise than I did with an IV drip and feeling like a 1,000-pound boulder on your eye. So the long story short, they said, well, if you don't
it looks like we might have lost Lamon for a second there.
Are you there?
Yeah, we got you back, mate. Go on.
Okay.
What were you saying?
Do you remember the last part where I left off?
Yeah, mate. Aye. Yeah.
Okay, so what I was saying was that they offered me this fight, and I knew that the only way that I was going to get a shot at fighting for the title again is if I took it right now. So they basically was like, we're not gonna let you get a tune-up fight, because I asked them, let me get a tune-up. I haven't done anything in over a year. It was a year and 4 months before I fought Vladimir Klitschko, with just doing a whole year, just 9 months of being inactive, man. I couldn't even pick up a cup of water because it hurt my eye. So for 9 months, I did absolutely nothing. So when we got in a fight, because my depth perception was so off, I didn't know how far this man was from me. I couldn't judge the distance. I was rusty. So everybody that want to give Vladimir Klitschko his props to say, oh, he beat Lamon Brewster, he didn't beat me at my best. He beat me at my worst. But if as his fans, if they're happy with that, well, then cool. More power to him.
Lamon, we've got a viewer asking called Daryl Adams, sorry. Who do you think will win? The Truth or Bud? Errol Spence or Terence Crawford?
That's a hard question. That is a question that I cannot answer, to be honest with you, because they both bring a dynamic to the boxing ring and skill generalship, man. They're both masters. I just think the one with the best plan is going to be the one that wins. The one that wants it the most is the one that's going to win, man. I can't choose sides, to be honest, but I can tell you who I think will win between Tyson Fury and Usyk. I think Tyson Fury would win. I think Tyson Fury, he shows us that not only is he a big fighter, he's a smart fighter. And he knows how to use his strength. He knows how to use his reach. He knows how to adapt to fighting. And I just think that he'll be too big, too strong. And with that kind of size, with skill, I can't see Usyk beating him, because he don't possess a punch hard enough that could really get the attention or the respect of a guy like Tyson Fury, especially after he just beat the hardest puncher in boxing today, which is Deontay Wilder. If he could take his punches, what do you think that Tyson Fury? What do you think that Usyk will be able to do to a guy like Tyson Fury?
Personally, I think that Usyk could give him something to think about, but I just think Fury's so versatile that he would end up finding a way to win, and it would probably be through a lot of pressure and mauling and stuff like that, and just wearing him down with his size and leaning on him.
Yes, sir.
Lamon, so like we've heard some great stories about your career. Just in closing, kind of like after you've retired, you're very well spoken. You put your point across very well. Have you had any like offers to be a commentator? What you're doing with yourself now, and how's everything going now, mate?
Hey, man. Well, thank you for asking, man. I am doing a couple of things, which is why I want to keep in touch with you, man, because I have gosh, there's so much to tell you. I don't know where I really want to start, but I'm going to say this, man. I started Brewster's Place, which is my nonprofit organization, which is based upon raising money to be able to pay retired champions to tell their stories to young men and young women around the world in every country, because who better to learn about how to be successful in life than a world champion? Because this is the thing that school teaches. School teaches you education, but it doesn't teach you application. So what we're doing at Brewster's Place.
All right, mate. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Lamon. I've just added a new member to the stream, Nordic Warrior. He's got a YouTube channel himself with thousands of subscribers. So, Nordic, would you like to ask Lamon any questions?
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Can you hear me on this? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm not using my usual hardware here. Yeah, how's it going, Lamon, man? Good to see you.
Hey, it's good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, I was watching some of your fights recently, weirdly enough.
Right on.
Yeah, the fight you were just talking about, the Liakovic one, that was some fight, that was, man. It was brutal. I don't know how you were taking all them punches, man, especially with what you were telling us about the eye. That's pretty crazy. Man,
it was like driving a car that has 5 gears, but you can only shift to 3 gears. You can't get to fourth or fifth, because every time like every time I try to exchange, the punches hurt so bad in my eye. It felt like somebody had an ice pick trying to push themselves out of my eye forward, like coming out through my face. Like it hurt so bad. So I wasn't able to get to that 4th or 5th gear because I could have stopped him. I could have knocked him out. But every time I got to him, either he looked farther away or he looked closer than what I thought he was because my depth perception was off. And on top of that, that pain that I had to deal with, on top of that, trying to breathe through one nostril because Dum Dum decided to wear a mouthpiece that you couldn't breathe through your mouth. So
yeah, that was some fight, man. That's the thing, because I noticed while watching it as well, like there was definitely something off about you. Like that definitely wasn't the same guy that fought Vladimir and all them other guys, you know, because the thing about Lamon Brewster, or the thing about Liakovic, he was a good boxer. He had good skills, good movement, you know, quick hands. He was quite an athletic heavyweight, but he was never the most prolific puncher, you know, and there was something about him that night. He seemed to really control the action, you know, he seemed to control the pace, and yeah, your accuracy just wasn't there, you know. It is what it is. It happens, you know. Man,
I was swinging, and if you look at the fight, that's why I was throwing so many punches, because I didn't know where he was. Like every time I threw a punch, when I thought that he was close enough to be hit, he was 2 or 3 feet further back, man. And it's like your depth perception. I didn't know how much your depth perception is thrown off when you don't have the use of both eyes. You know, my left eye, as I say, I couldn't see. It looked like I had a golden veil over it with some red ketchup down the middle. and so that's all I could see in that eye. So my right eye, which wasn't my good eye, my left eye was actually my best eye. And so with my right eye, I was trying to make the calculations using both eyes, but it kept throwing off my reach. It kept throwing off the when should I punch? When should I not punch? How should I move? How far away is he? How close am I? So all that was just thrown off, man.
Yeah. It's probably the reason that you've hurt your left eye is you generally, as an orthodox fighter, lead like that, with your left side first, and that's what's taking the brunt of the punishment, isn't it?
Yes, and people don't know that I'm really left-handed.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Lamon? Right, so we've got Richard Brown saying, what should Anthony Joshua do now? Lamon, what's your opinion? And another question I'd like to ask you is, what do you think about the rise of YouTube boxing and stuff?
Which question you want me to answer first?
Let's go with the Anthony Joshua one.
Okay, so in the fight with in the case of Anthony Joshua, I think he should just go back to the drawing board and then figure out. So I think he need to play a little more chess. The reason why is because certain opponents you have to fight aggressive. Certain opponents you can box. It doesn't make sense for a big man like Anthony Joshua to try to box with a guy like Usyk, who Usyk's only way of beating him is using his skill, using his size. I believe that Joshua should have made that fight an ugly fight, made it a war. He should have been trying to lean on Usyk as much as he can to try to wear him down and being brutish with this guy. I mean, it shouldn't have been two people in there boxing. He should have made it a slug match. He should have cut off the ring and made it very uncomfortable, because a guy like Usyk, he's a skilled fighter, man. This guy was a unified cruiserweight. In order to be a unified cruiserweight, that would mean you would have to have the skills of a small man, but also have the mindset of a big man, let alone to become a undisputed champ as a cruiserweight, to go up to heavyweight. For Joshua, that fight should have been an absolutely mudslinging competition, man. It should have been dirty. I mean, dirty. He should have been doing everything he could do to take this man out of his mental game, out of his comfort zone. And that's the way I feel about that fight. I don't think that Joshua should give up. I think that he should just don't start at the top. Start maybe three quarters. Start at people at who's ranked number 10 and work your way back up to the top, because there are lessons to be learned in every single battle. But he got to be able to differentiate between between a big fighter and a little fighter. You don't use skill as a big guy against a little guy. You make the little guy fight like a big guy. You make him slug with you.
Yeah.
Lamon, actually, this has just come to mind because Nordic Warrior's on the stream. Nordic's like sort of on his channels put quite a lot of proof up that appears that like Carl Froch was using dirty hand wraps, a bit like Antonio Margarito did. What's your thoughts on that? And was there not some controversy with Robert Hellenius and yourself with that?
Well, you know, man, my eye is the proof of that because of the simple fact I was first tipped off in that morning when the phone rang in my hotel room and my wife answered it, and she just looked at me. She didn't say anything, so I knew not to ask because I'm trying to stay focused on the fight. And then when we get there, I noticed that he had a locker room and I didn't. Like, I'm the former heavyweight champion of the world. You don't have a locker room for me? Okay, then you put me in this room. But then you say when it's time to get gloved up, there's no hand inspection. But you didn't make that, like, and since I was 7 years old, I've always had a glove inspection. Now you telling me there's no glove inspection? And then they told me they're using the rules of Austria. Well, hell, we in Germany. We 2 hours south of Checkpoint Charlie. What the hell you mean ain't no glove inspection?
Yeah, do you know why that is as well, Lamon? That's because apparently Sauerland Promotion didn't have a very good reputation, or they didn't have a very good relationship with the German Boxing Commission going back years. So they used like the Austrian or the like whatever Czech Boxing Commission. Like they didn't work with the actual official German Boxing Commission for some reason.
Oh, wow. So they threatened me that if I didn't fight, they said that I was going to have to get my own way back from the whole. Now I'm telling you word for word what they told me. They said that if I didn't take the fight, I was going to have to get my way back from that venue wherever we was fighting 2 hours south of Checkpoint Charlie. I was going to have to get my own way back with my wife and my team. I had to find my way back from the venue to the hotel, from the hotel to Berlin, from Berlin back to America, and they were going to sue me. And that's word for word. That's what they told me.
So with everything that happened, what's your thoughts about Hellenius now and his upcoming fight with Wilder?
Hey man, you know what, man? God has a destiny for every man. So no matter what happens, he is going to pay for what he done to me when judgment day comes. And everybody that was a part of that, because I'm blind in my left eye, I have to live the rest of my life blind in my eye because they wanted to win so bad that they allowed whatever happened, they allowed it to happen to me. And so God is going to reward him someday for what they done to me.
Did your manager not ever try to ensure that there was some sort of inspection that night? Because I'd imagine if you were tipped off that he wasn't being observed while he was having his hands wraps or whatnot, did you guys not like dig your heels in and say, no, this fight isn't happening unless we see what's in them gloves? Like, did you ever try to get that resolved, or did you just go through with the fight?
Well, that's when they told me that I was going to have to find my own way back to the hotel. And that's when this is what I said, man. I told them, I thought about it. I said, well, listen, God is on my side. I believe in God. And you can't say you believe in God and then walk in fear. And I have no fear of any man. So I said, to hell with it. I'll take the fight. So I took the fight. And so I noticed some things that were happening to me in the ring where I know it wasn't normal. Now, what those things were, I can't prove. So I'm not gonna declare those things. But I just put it like this: Judgment Day is coming. And when he stand before the Most High God, him and his team, they are going to pay for what they done. There's no forgiveness for sins for what they've done to one of his children. And I know I'm a child of God, so they'll pay for it. I'm not worried about it. You know, the Bible says it's better for a man to go to heaven with one eye than to go to hell with two. And so I'm going to just keep trying to walk and do what's right before the eyes of God until I'm no longer here, until I stand judgment.
Yeah, I mean, if they really did that, there's no hiding it from the Lord. Put it that way. No chance.
He said, all things done in the dark shall come to the light. So,
Amen.
he's gotten away with it. That's fine. Even when I saw him at the Boxing Hall of Fame a few years ago after the fight, and I'm there with glasses on because I'm blind in one eye, and he just kind of acted like everything was cool, like you didn't just. I'm not like it was just a fight and you won. No, they did some foul stuff. As a matter of fact, I had slits across my eyelids that my doctor, his name was Dr. Robert Carnes of Beverly Hills. He was the fight doctor for the Forum when they used to have the Forum where the Lakers used to play. They have boxing. He said, in my 40 years of being a doctor, I've never seen these kind of cuts associated with boxing. And I was like, well, what are you saying? He's saying these cuts are inconclusive. These cuts are not the type of cuts that are made in a fight. When a fighter is cut, we cut on the brow of the eye. I had slits across my eyelids like if he had an X-Acto knife or something in his glove, and his glove felt like it had concrete in it. Man, I fought people like Vladimir Klitschko. I fought a lot of big fighters that had a lot of knockouts and could really punch. How is it that this guy had like 10, 12 fights and half of those were knockouts? So you can't tell me this guy punched harder than Vladimir Klitschko unless he's cheating.
What do you think the punishment should be, Lamon, for like steroid users and people who use illegal hand wraps? Because I mean, Nora could explain to you, but there seems to be a lot of evidence that Carl Froch was doing it for a lot of his big fights when he could get away with it.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that if someone's cheating this way, there should be criminal proceedings.
The one that really stuck out was the one that he's alluded to is the Lucien Boutte fight, because I don't know if you heard about this, but Lucien Boutte's trainer at the time, Stéphane Larouche, he released a statement after the fight, essentially talking about how Eddie Hearn and Matchroom basically didn't allow any part of Boutte's team to observe the hands being wrapped. And usually in the UK, that's unheard of. Like fights are under the British Boxing Board of Control.
Exactly.
Fights are always supposed to be properly regulated. There's always supposed to be somebody there to, like you say, observe the hand wraps. And that didn't happen for that fight. And in that fight, Carl Froch showed the kind of punching power he'd never shown before in his entire career. And it practically ruined Lucien Boutte. He was never the same after that fight. And when a story did come out about it at the time, what I noticed, because I followed it very closely, because I used to live in Nottingham and I followed Froch's career very closely, there was a real effort to hush it up, if you know what I mean. Like nobody in the mainstream boxing media said a word about it. Nobody would touch it. So that was what I found very disturbing about that situation. So you're definitely onto something when you talk about glove tampering in the sport. It definitely happens, you know.
Well, these promoters seem to have so much pull over what does and doesn't get said in the media, and the only fighter in recent history who I recall getting like sort of publicly named and shamed for it is Antonio Margarito, but that's just because it was so obvious.
Right. Yeah, and I agree, man. You know that there. I don't know what the rules are, but I do agree there should be criminal charges pressed against people that cheat in this sport, man. Because when you cheat like that, you could actually take somebody's life. You know, I'm thankful that I'm here today to be with my family. But what if it had been both of my eyes? Then I would have been blind. Then what?
Definitely, mate. I mean, that's absolutely terrible what's sort of happened to you. So just in closing, Lamon, just before I go, what do you think about this whole YouTube phenomenon with YouTubers fighting? Do you think it's good or do you think it's bad? Some people say it's good, but I've got a feeling that it can be sort of bad for the sport in some ways too.
Yeah, I think that there's good and bad with it, man. And like the Bible say, it says, try all things, prove that which is good. So I think the time is going to really tell if it is good or not. I think that it's good to the extent that if it comes down to picking up a knife or picking up a gun, I take picking up a glove over that any day.
Well, thanks for that, Lamon. I really, really appreciate you joining me today, and it would be great to do it again sometime.
Well, hey, man, I'd like to tell you about something that I'd like you to help me with.
Yeah, let's hear it, mate.
All right, so what we're doing is we formed a group of fighters by the so the name, there's a nonprofit called Brewster's Place, which what it does is we're paying world champions, retired champions, to teach positive affirmations to young individuals through Zoom. And so I'm looking for people that want to be referees. The referees are the people that conduct the calls, and they're the ones that ask the champ the questions. And what I'm looking for is for people that want to be a part of Brewster's Place around the world that can teach about these positive affirmations, because life is a fight, and every punch a fighter throws, we can tell you what it means in life. And the thing about education today, education we can learn, but application is not being taught. So you got a lot of educated fools in life because they got this education, but they don't know how to apply it because their moms or their pops or their family members in life didn't really teach them how to apply themselves. So who better to teach you about how to apply yourself in life than world champions from all over the world? And we have so many fighters that are already on board, from Lights Out James Toney to Riddick Bowe, Chris Bird, Ray Mercer, Layla Ali. We have a lot of fighters on board, and I want this thing to be a family. Boxing is one big family no matter where you're from, because we're all here for the same common denominator, which is the love of the sport of boxing. So what I want people to do is to be a part of Brewster's Place, so that in their countries they can have their own camps up under them where they can teach these applications on how to perceive life as a fight, because every punch we throw means something to life, but these young individuals don't know how to perceive life because they're not being taught. But we've broken it down.
But Layman,
yes,
I'll stick a few quid into that, mate, and help out with that project any way I can. Okay. And it would be great, I'm a huge fan of James Toney and Riddick Bowe and stuff. It would be great if we could get you back on with some of those guys and yes, talk about it again and sort of really pump this out there and get the message across, mate.
Thank you. Absolutely, man. Anytime, I would love to do that, because what we've done, we've been together, the five of us, as world heavyweight champions, and we're starting our own reality show called The Perfect Combination. And we have our own Irish sea moss that we're going to be selling around the world. And what we're doing is we're taking the money that we make from the Irish sea moss, and part of the proceeds, we've donated that money to Brewster's Place so we can afford to pay champions who are no longer remembered in the sport. We're paying them to be able to teach these lessons for free, so it doesn't cost money for young individuals to get mentoring, which a lot of people in life needs to be mentored today, especially with all the mental health disorders that we have going around in the world. We need to come together as a family, and there's no better family than a boxing family.
Well, Layman, Slim Reaper's saying we need a link, so send the link where people can make donations, and I'll share it on my community feed, and I'll stick some money in myself tomorrow. And like I say, if you and any of these other champions, it'd be great if we could get you back on with the likes of James Toney and stuff and promote it, mate. That would be an honour as well, because I've met Riddick Bowe once myself. I've never met James Toney and that, but it would be an honour to speak to some of them on this show as well, mate, and raise some more money, because it sounds like a brilliant project.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thank you, brother. I want you guys to support us, man, because we're going to be putting out a lot of positive messages for the world, man, showing the world how the boxing community sticks together. We're one big family, and it doesn't matter where you go around the world. If you walk in a boxing gym, nobody's going to judge you by the color of your skin. Nobody's going to judge you by your height, by your skill level, by anything other than we're there for the same love of boxing. That's our common denominator, man. And I ask that all our brothers and sisters in boxing come together and let's show the world that we're one big family.
Okay, thanks for that, mate. So, like I say, that link's going to be going up soon, guys, and we're going to be promoting Layman's Brewster's Place, it's called. We're going to be promoting that charity, and I'm going to put the link up on the community feed on my YouTube. So look out for that, guys. And I'm going to stick some money in, and please do the same. So thanks for that. Cheers, Lamon. It was such an honor to have you on today, mate.
Brother, hey, it's my pleasure, brother. And I'm gonna let the champs know that you guys are on board with us, man. So anytime you need an interview from us, just give us a call, man. We'll all get on there, as a matter of fact.
Cool, mate. Well, I'll catch you soon, Lamon. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me on and all, mate. Cheers.